Thank you very much. We're up. I'm on vacation mask protocol, so I may put mine back on. All right, this is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Fulton County Board of Registration and Elections. It's August 11th, 2022. I'd like to call the meeting to order. For those of you doing public comment, well, for everybody, please turn off your cell phone so we can go about our work without interruption. And then if you are signed up to speak, I'll call you in turn. Usually I call two people so that the second person can kind of be ready to go. You have 2 minutes. I'll give you a heads up a few seconds before that. So at the 2-minute mark, please conclude your statement, your sentence, not your statement. We could do both at the same time. That's really good. Without any further ado, we'd like the board to look at the agenda, and if you're ready to approve the agenda, if there's no additions, I'll take a motion.
Approve the agenda.
Seconded.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. The agenda is approved. We'll move right now to public comment. So the first speaker, and please forgive me if I mispronounce your name, is Jane Shayer, and the next person will be Alex Ames. Ms. Ames, would you give me about 1 minute and 30-second heads up? Yes, please. And just pull that mic right down so you can speak into it. 1 second. It doesn't seem to be on. Is there
A red button.
the button on the right with the little person figure should do it?
Hello?
Yeah.
There you go.
Go for it.
My name is Jane Shapey. I live in Fulton County. I'm here today because of early voting. Because of the House Bill 202, the absentee ballot processing time has been shortened. Every effort must be made to notify voters of any ballot issues. Voters must be notified through every method possible to remedy issues with their ballots, including but not limited to phone, email, and regular mail. I want to thank all of you on the Board of Elections for providing a strong access to early voting. All eligible voters should have access to the ballot box. Please ensure that early voting locations are equitably distributed across the county. Please plan to increase the number of locations with high capacities and on college campuses. The Board of Elections, I believe, should ensure that all in-person early voting locations are open 7 A to 7 P every day, including both Sundays during early voting. Please continue to support poll workers and their managers to ensure smooth operations during early voting and Election Day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Alex Ames, and then the next person is Lucia Frazier.
Good morning. Thank you for your time. I'm a registered Fulton County voter. I'm also a student at Georgia Tech, and I'm here today to ask you guys to please ensure that college campuses are on the list of early vote locations. Early voting locations on campuses are not mobile voting locations, and they're really important for students like me. My precinct is in OC Elementary up in Johns Creek, and that's anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour from my college campus, and I don't have a car. So if I had to vote on Election Day, I'd have to use a chunk of my paycheck, some of my time off, and Uber my way up there and back, which is not doable for most students. It's really important that students who have less access to transportation, less control over their schedules, who are studying full-time, many of us are working full-time like me, are able to access the ballot, and early voting makes that easier, and that is a right we should all have. I'm here to ask that Spelman, Morehouse, Clark Atlanta, Atlanta Metropolitan, GSU, and my own college have early voting precincts on campus with poll workers inside of buildings, not mobile voting locations this November. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Frazier. And let me say the next person will be Melissa Fiorillo.
Good morning. Last month, you guys announced a process change of leaving bad data registrations on the poll as pending. That doesn't make any sense to me. These are registrations that should never have been added to begin with. Any registration that shows up with missing information or addresses that don't exist should never be added, and you send them a card saying their registration is incomplete. And even though some of these may be represented by real people, many are not. And the ones that are represented have probably already re-registered, and that line is now obsolete. So now you have all these extra lines in the registration that you're counting in your budget, because you just look at the active voters. And if I'm not mistaken, if you're putting them in pending, they might still be active. So please verify what your budget is based on, active, canceled, I don't know. But you're counting all those people in your budget. So in light of that, we have taken off a lot of people, a lot of lines, I should say, that shouldn't have been there. So we should be saving some money now. So that means we should have less precincts. I think we've saved enough to remove a couple of precincts because it's based on number of people per precinct. I just want to make sure we're not purposely trying to bankrupt ourselves. I think the money's gonna run out. And all
15
here
seconds.
is that we just keep spending it. And by the way, as far as precincts around Georgia Tech, there is the High Museum of Art, which is walkable distance. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa Fiorillo, and then after that, Crafton Langley.
Good morning. My first concern is the security of our elections. You have heard that it mentioned that the QR codes go against Georgia law and that it states the voter has to be able to verify his vote. Yet we are still using these tabulators to count our ballots, and we don't know what's in that QR code. Also, I worked the primary runoff. When the scanner was delivered, I saw the memory card flap was not secured, and I was told we don't need to report it because we don't want to get anybody in trouble. Things like this do not give me great confidence in our elections. With more and more information coming out about the integrity of our elections, for example, 2,000 Mules, the ballot harvesting scheme, which was not defunct. Also, DeKalb County's vote discrepancy, where a Democrat candidate who won and was told she was third place, but she really won. And we were told this was a candidate alignment issue. But if you had realigned the candidates and taken the one out, the votes didn't match. And with the recount, they actually found more votes than actually the scanner counted. So this is not just a Democrat or a Republican issue. This is an American issue. Someone is picking our candidates. By the way, Selection Code is another movie. It's coming out August
15
21st.
seconds.
And I suggest you watch it. And also there's a demonstration in Georgia that's taken place so voters can see live their ballot being scanned and what's being recorded on the image live. So I suggest maybe you take a look at that as well.
Time.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Okay, next up, you're Ms. Langley, right? Sorry, I was losing my own place. And after that, Sandra Burkhardt.
Yes, good morning, to everyone here to discuss these important issues. My name is Crafton Langley. This morning I am here as a pro-voter advocate to urge you all to offer the gold standards of early voting. Here are those 4 standards. 1, offer 2 days of Sunday voting. 2, offer 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. daily voting. 3, open all locations for the duration of early voting. Thank you all for providing 31 in-person early voting locations, and that brings me to point number 4. Please continue to offer an increased number of early voting locations, including high-capacity locations that are culturally relevant and easily accessible to those without transportation. In closing, thank you for allowing me this opportunity to express these views.
Thank you. Ms. Burkhardt, and after her, Mason Goodwin.
My name is Sandra Burkhardt. I live in Fulton County. I want to ask you why you're trying to expand the number of early voting locations. These people that are asking for them, are any of them willing to work? It costs a great deal of money to open all these places 7 days a week, 7 to 7, and right now we're doing it with all these temporary agencies. We don't need any more early voting locations in this county. Have you actually checked the number of people that vote on early voting? Have you checked the traffic? The election department spent less than $10 million in 2010, and we are projected to spend close to $50 million in 2022, an increase of more than 500%. Fulton County contains about 10% of the state's registered voters. If the rest of the counties in Georgia operated like Fulton County, we would spend roughly $500 million each election cycle. Let me say it another way. $500 million. Your job is not only to ensure access to voting, but also to be responsible stewards of the taxpayers, me, and run an effective operation. There is zero justification for additional voting locations. This item unquestionably should be voted down today. Thank you.
Thank you. Mason Goodwin, and after him, Kevin Muldowney.
Hey everyone, I'm Mason Goodwin. I'm a student at Georgia State. And I'm here to address the issue that right now we don't have early voting precincts on our college campuses. Although we've seen the change in agenda that you will starting to make the effort to provide us with these early vocations, I'd still like to remind you why this is important. First of all, a lot of us don't have access to cars. That particularly affects low-income students like myself who can't necessarily get around, especially here in Atlanta where there's low access to public transportation. And then I'd also like to address the previous comments with you guys not having funding and not having poll workers to run these precincts. If this had been done 2 months before this, we could have had students run these early voting precincts, which again takes the amount of budget you have to put into these early voting precincts, but it also allows us, the students, to learn how to do this work, and you build a future generation of poll workers. Thank you.
Kevin Muldowney, and after that, Marjorie Pack.
Kevin Muldowney, I'm a resident of Fulton. You know, by the way, the High Museum is about a mile from Georgia Tech and Georgia State, and they're open for early voting. But we really, on that point, we really don't need any more advanced voting locations on the north side or the south side of the county. I worked as a poll watcher in several locations, C.T. Martin, East Point Library, Buckhead Library, Sandy Springs Library, as well as various locations on the north side. The staff at these locations were all quite helpful, but for the most part, they were never busy. With the exception of the last day of early voting, they were never crowded. The lines on the final day of advanced voting could be alleviated by educating the voting public to vote earlier in that 2-week period or on the actual election day where we have many, many precincts manned and opened all day long. We do not need any more early voting locations or drop boxes. As was stated earlier, we spent $50 million this year for 10% of the state's vote. Our goal is to be responsible to the citizens and run an efficient operation, not the typical government bloat that spends every penny it gets
15 seconds.
and always wants more. One other thought that was mentioned would be to have board members work one day of early voting, get an idea what the process is and get an idea what the crowds really are. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Marjorie Pack is next, and after her, Susan Ortiz.
Hi.
Morning.
My name's Marjorie Pack. I live in Fulton County. I work at Emory in DeKalb
Pull that
County.
mic down. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Sorry to interrupt.
Is that good? And I do voter education work all over the metro area, so I've paid attention to different counties' ways of doing elections. And I want to start by thanking you for some things that I think Fulton Elections does especially well. The website is informative and relatively easy to use. These kinds of mailings that get sent to registered voters are tremendously helpful for people who have trouble getting online. I think having lots of early voting locations and having weekend voting during early voting is crucial for a lot of the people I've met. I would like to see Fulton Elections do even better on a couple of things. One of them is expanding early voting access, which several people have already spoken against, so I won't repeat what they've said. But I think with this election in particular, it's very important that Fulton County do everything possible to educate and prepare voters for the reduction in drop box availability that they're likely to experience this fall due to recent changes in voting law. I've talked to many people in our community who rely on absentee voting because they work very long or unpredictable hours. Or
15 seconds.
Right? This mailing last time told us that drop boxes are the fastest, safest way to make sure your ballot is returned on time, and I'm very concerned about voters who got this message in 2020 or planning to use a drop box this fall. Thank you. I very much hope that we can do some more voter education about this.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Susan Ortiz, and then Candy Muldowney.
My name is Susan Ortiz. At the last BRE meeting, you were told that all poll workers get a manual. I wanted to show you what we received at training for early voting, a little pamphlet, just an agenda of what would be covered during the 3 days of training. This manual is only received for election day training, which is helpful for reviewing what one has learned. But early voting is much more complicated with laptops, poll pads, printers, and voters coming in from many locations. And a little pamphlet is all we get. So I came up with my own step-by-step processing reminder. On day one, when we opened the polls for the primaries, none of the clerks knew exactly what to do. I stood behind them and went from one clerk to the other, reminding them of the steps and gave them the sheet that I had to come up with. My point is, training is still lacking, and it is inconsistent. For example, I was never trained how to edit a voter's history on ElectionNet when voters came in with a ballot that had been mailed and decided to vote in person. But guess what?
15
The
seconds.
two clerks from Alabama who had the same instructor on a different day were trained how to do it, and they showed me. I also met a poll worker from Chastain Park location who said they were not asking voters to surrender their mail ballot when they came in to vote in person. So many inconsistencies are still there.
Thank you. If you'd like to share your checklist with the staff, I'd ask you to give it to the officer, and he'd be happy to share it with them. Candy, right there over there by the wall. Candy Muldowney and Jason Frazier after her.
Yes, my name is Candy Muldowney. I would like to speak to you about getting rid of the electronic machines that we vote on. According to Georgia Code Title 21, Chapter 2, ballot markers shall produce paper ballots showing voters who they chose to vote for in such a way the voter can read it with their own eyes. When you go up to the BMD and make your selections, you then review it and print your ballot. You read it over to make sure all your choices are correct. Then you take your ballot to the Dominion scanner, which actually looks like a janitor's trash bin, and you can scan your ballot into the machine. The scanner takes a beautiful picture of your ballot, but that's not what the scanner counts. The scanner files your image away, but it actually reads what is located in the QR code box at the top of your ballot. You cannot verify what is listed in that code with your own eyes. This is the code that's actually going to relay who you voted for to your precinct and then to the SOS's office. This equipment is illegal. Even Judge Amy Totenberg, in her opinion piece on pages 81 and 82, suggested the QR code on our
15
ballots
seconds.
does not align with Georgia's election law. The good news is, you board members, along with county commissioner approval, can choose to get rid of the equipment via good old paper and pen. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Frazier? And after him, Mr. Ferguson.
Hello, my name is Jason Frazier. I guess first off, I wanted to echo some of the comments that were made just a minute ago about the early voting locations. I know when I was a college kid, I walked more than a mile every day. There's an early voting location not far. And those early voting locations are incredibly slow. I worked one of them last year, and it is painful for the first, all but the last 2 days. Very few people come. Maybe you can move that location a little closer to the campus. That's fine. But having more locations, I think, would be not in the spirit of helping people that are struggling to pay the bills, and you guys are already raising our taxes to have more of these locations. The other point, somebody mentioned a 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. You guys don't want to hire people that can work, 2 days a week. You want it to be the same person there all 7 days for all 3 weeks. That makes it into almost 100 hours a day when they come in early to set up. They have to stay later to finish it. you've got people working, if you follow that plan, you're requiring the same person to work 100 hours a week for almost 3 weeks. That's tough. I worked early voting last year. It was tough on me, the hours that they had then, and I'm a young man. The older folks, it would be a struggle. It's a struggle today. That's part of why you struggle to find people that are willing, able to do this. And I love the idea of having some college guys or college kids working the elections because they can learn, they can see, but there's no way they can take 3 weeks off of college to do this. So yeah, utilize them, but allow them to work a day here and there or something of that nature.
Time. Thank you. Mr. Ferguson, and then,
Can you speak
Good morning.
directly
I'm Earl
into the
Ferguson. I'm a registered
microphone?
voter.
Just for the purpose of, we have someone on Zoom who can't hear.
okay. Excuse me, Mr. Ferguson. Suzanne Hubbard is next. Go ahead.
Can I go now?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm a registered voter here in Fulton County. I failed to put on my sign-up sheet what I wanted to talk about, but I have received a copy of the Eliza Slough firm letter. I got the one that was addressed to Augusta, Richmond County. I presume it's the same that went to all counties, and that's what I'd like to talk about briefly. The letter references the National Voter Registration Act and 52 U.S. Code 2057, which I think is the same piece of legislation with different titles. Neither of these federal laws contains directions on what to do when you have an out-of-state voter change. And as a result, the way I interpret this gentleman's letter, or this person, I don't know whether it's a man or a woman, is that it's okay to go ahead and vote in both states, or more if you want to. I don't think that's the intent of the law. The letter also references Georgia 21-2-217, which is the rules for determining residence. And,
15 seconds.
And we use that. It fails to mention two very important sections in there. That one that says registered to vote in the other state, and the other one deals with homestead exemptions. Those are fatal errors. I hope you will not pay too much attention to that letter. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Suzanne Hubbard, and then Julian Fortuna. Pull that microphone right where it's comfortable. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Suzanne Hubbard. I am here to give feedback as a poll worker. I worked the May 24th elections, early voting, and runoff. I do not understand adding more precincts as a poll worker or as a taxpayer. Most days of the 21 days of early voting, we spent waiting for voters, and only occasionally we had bursts of people and very short lines. Sundays were particularly slow. Most workers would have appreciated the Sundays off or at least a later start time. More precincts would cost more money and need more workers. You could find more workers if there was better communication between the elections department and the temp agencies, especially with recruitment fairs. But why spend the extra money to have more people sit around for all but the last few days of early voting? Every day, even day of, my precinct only had 30 voters. We definitely could have handled more voters, even with a bigger election. Please think of the taxpayers. Spending wisely should be a goal too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Julian Fortuna.
Hello, everyone. My name is Julian Fortuna, and I'm a college student who knows how difficult it can be to vote as a university student. Many college students don't have cars. We have classes, jobs, and as such, depend on you all to provide us access to the ballot. I believe my fellow college students, who are also taxpayers, who are also workers, when they tell me that difficult access to voting is not the same as accessible voting. When students saw early vote precincts on Fulton College campuses had been closed and there was no assurance that they would reopen, we were concerned. Our precincts are open for 2 days on these campus locations and are largely staffed by students like Mason and Alex who do their duty, their communities. Young people's voting habits at the beginning of their lives is shown to impact how they engage with our democracy for the rest of their lives. It is all the more important, then, that students have easy access to the ballot. We're not lazy. We just need the accessibility to make our voices heard. Not only do we, like all voters, deserve the right to make our unique needs known at the ballot box, but an investment in young people's access to the ballot now is an investment in an active and engaged citizenry for decades to follow. The students who inherit Georgia's future and our democracy are worth that investment. I ask that you open these early vote precincts on Spelman, Morehouse, Clark-Atlanta, GSU, and Georgia Tech campuses. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes our public comment. Thank you all. We will move now to approval of the minutes. Sorry, Mark, I realize you might not be able to hear me. We've got minutes from the July 14th meeting, our regular meeting, and then a special called meeting on July 26th. Would anybody, any questions, additions, changes, anything like that to the minutes? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. You can either move to approve both of those simultaneously or separately.
Motion to approve both meeting minutes together.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. The motion carries. The minutes are approved, and we'll move into the monthly operations report.
Good morning, Chair and members of the board. We will present the the operations report in order by division, starting on page 92. The first division is administration.
Good morning, board and citizens. The July report for the administration division is as follows.
Wait, excuse me 1 second. Would you lean into that microphone and speak real loud so we can make sure that Mr. Wingate can hear?
Okay.
Thank
Can
you.
you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning again. The July report for the administration division is as follows. Vacancies. We are currently recruiting for the positions director, which is an external recruitment. His position was reposted and the closing date was August 8th. HR informed us of 35 applicants and information will be forwarded. Registration manager. We are interviewing and hope to select a candidate shortly. Voter education outreach specialist. We are working with HR for the position to be posted. Registration officer. We are waiting on a register and preparing for interviews. We onboarded 60 employees as time-limited positions with starting date August 2nd through December 31st. These are 43 election system specialists and 17 logistic assistants. In regards to special elections, IGAs were approved by the Board of Commissions for City of Milton, Roswell, Atlanta, East Point, and Fairburn to conduct special elections in November. In regards to CCDR reports, a late and non-filer report has been submitted to the state. All candidates' last date to file these reports was July 8th. This concludes report for July 2022.
Okay, any questions? Thank you.
Okay, we will continue with the absentee division.
Good morning, board. In the month of July, absentee concentrated on retention. That is accepted, rejected, spoiled, no, undelivered ballots, submitting those to the clerk of court. Not only that, but just retaining our paper records and archiving those documents. We completed internal training, and we spoke with a few vendors in the month of July, but That's it for absentee. Can you all hear me?
Yeah,
I think, okay.
we can hear you. And you want to talk a little bit about applying for an absentee ballot for the November general election, what people need to do?
To apply for a ballot, you cannot apply for an absentee ballot until August 22nd. August 22nd is when you can begin to apply for a ballot. And those ballots are not mailed out until October 10th is the mail-out date.
So you can't receive them prior to August 22nd, or you have to return them?
So you can request a ballot as of August 22nd.
I see, okay. But not
We
before?
We don't begin mailing out those ballots until October 10th.
Okay, thank you. Just for the folks who are watching, that's mandated by state law. That's what we have to deal with. It's very challenging when somebody sends us something on August 21st and we have to send it back and tell them to do it again. That is not us. That is the state law.
Yes, and also to that end, that is also what we did in the month of July. We had to send notices that their request was too early.
Yeah. My sincere hope is that, particularly for seniors who want it for the entire cycle, that we can find some way for those deadlines not to apply, because it gets very, very confusing. But again, that's not in our hands. So are there any questions?
What's the last date for absentee ballots to get to you?
Election day, November
Election.
8th, 7 p.m.
Okay. Thanks, Marissa.
And the application is the week before, the Friday,
Yes,
a week prior.
yes, sir. No, 11 days. It's 11 days prior.
Right, not the Friday before, but the
Okay.
Friday before
yes.
that.
Friday before that.
Okay.
And we will have the ballot tracking for, or we will not? There will.
No, ma'am.
Okay, I thought that we would have it for November.
Yes, if it was automated, but it's going to be manual.
It'll be manual.
Manual. Yeah, we're mailing our ballots manually.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And then, can you talk a little bit about the vendors are there any vendors that we'll be using for?
Usual vendors, OPEX, of course, and probably that will be the only one.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and we may use Quadient. So OPEX and Quadient. OPEX is the vendor, so they'll do some maintenance on the cutters of the ballots. And Quadient is just a software that we use to print out ballots with a barcode.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Other questions? Mr. Wingate, anything? Okay. Johnson? Okay, next.
I will read the portion for the Elections Division. We have reached out to all municipalities regarding contests and questions to be placed on the ballot. As we receive those, they're being forwarded to the SOS, Center for Election Systems Ballot Builder. For supplies and logistics, inventory and preparation of supplies is currently being conducted for the November election. Moving companies are being secured to assist with expediting the voting equipment retrieval post-election. Polling locations for November election have been confirmed. One precinct location change will be presented to the board today. A pending change may be presented in September if necessary. Absentee ballot drop boxes placed for November election will also be presented today. They have been assessed and will be presented to the board as well. For recruitment and training, poll manager feedback roundtables were successfully conducted via Zoom. The election day poll worker manual is being updated for print production. The regional coordinator positions are fully staffed and poll worker recruitment has commenced. And the poll worker training schedule has been posted and is live for class registration. For advanced voting, I will let Ms. Benjamin give a summary.
Hi, good morning, board. What we've been working on is actually streamlining advanced voting training. On August 3rd, we had a roundtable with the compliance managers and the AV managers, basically asking them, give me one good statement. How would you see us improving advanced voting? It was very informative. In addition, After every training, we ask staff to give us feedback, give us an evaluation. For example, did the training meet your expectations? Do you believe that everything that you have learned in training, you can actually perform at advanced voting the first day? We ask you, do you think you can conduct early voting? Let's evaluate the trainers. Did the trainers meet your content to make sure that you follow? Each person was giving, at the last event training, an agenda and a training manual to follow along. Their feedback matters to us, and because of that, we decided to enhance the early voting process. We have had problems whereas waiting for password. We value the time that we ask the staff to come and sit. So with that enhancement, we will be given the password on the first day. We will make sure that staff had hands-on training from the day one. We will make sure that we revamp the whole early voting manual. So based on the evaluation and based on hearing from the team, we know that we have to make a difference, and that's exactly what we're doing. If I'm asking you to evaluate the process, we have to make sure that we're doing something to enhance the process. In addition, we will have the advanced voting training manual and supplemental training packet by print production before advanced voting starts, which is August 22nd, is the first day of advanced voting. Dover staff, and along with the voter education team, is actively conducting job fairs to make sure that we recruit prospective candidates for advanced voting. We have a Fulton County Advanced Voting Fair scheduled for August 17th, along with the VO team. Staffing, Dover staffing would also be in attendance. When that segment comes and going over approving the locations, you will see that we have added additional location to make sure that we service the whole public. Recruitment started in July 26th. The last day of recruitment will be November 4th. We will continue recruiting because I expect a large turnout for this election. We want to make sure that we're ready and we're effective and make sure to serve the voters. That's my short summary. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions?
Yes, so thank you so much for sharing about the roundtable and for doing that. I'm sure it sounds like it was very valuable. Will there be a summary report that can be sent to the board?
Yes, they are. I do have one.
Okay, great. And when could we receive that?
I could send it by Friday.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And when will the changes be made to the training manual?
It's in work in progress, and what I can do, I can share the changes with you.
Okay, wonderful. I know Ms. Crawford has also been really instrumental in that process as well. And what's the goal for recruitment for AV, for advanced voting?
Estimated about 500 staff.
And what about Election Day?
For Election Day, we're actively recruiting at this time. Is your question the number of
Just
positions?
the goal. What's the goal that we're trying to achieve that we need?
The total number of people? Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have those numbers in front of me.
Okay.
But I'll email you the staffing allocation sheet.
Okay,
So you
great.
can see exactly per precinct, how many people's in each precinct. We're gonna be recruited for each precinct.
Okay, thank you.
But for the purposes of people who are watching, it's several thousand, right?
I'm sorry?
It's several thousand.
Yeah, let me pull the numbers up. I'll
Okay,
pull
I
it
mean,
up
that's
right
not
now.
an accurate number, but I just wanted people
Okay,
to
yes.
understand the magnitude of that. Okay.
And we're still working with these staffing agencies to help with the recruitment process, right?
Yes.
Okay, and can you remind me the two Happy Faces and, it's three, right?
Yes, Happy Faces, Corporate Temps, and Dover.
And Dover, that's right.
Yes, and we're also, our VEO team is also going to be conducting recruitment fairs as well in all municipalities.
And is there going to be a meeting with all of them just so that the process is streamlined across the I know they may have different onboarding or different processes, but streamlining that so that each person has the same experience across
Yes, we
the
are.
3 agencies.
Yes, ma'am. We are going to meet with each temp agency to ensure they're all following the same process, and we also want to track to make sure that everybody's being contacted that has put an application. So we're going to be setting that up with admin and setting that up so we can meet with them individually.
Great, thank you so much.
Other questions? Mr. Wingate? Nope. Johnson? Nope, okay. Just to bring home the point of staffing, particularly for the young man who made the comment about it was too late. It's not too late. We'd love to have you either for advance voting or on election day. Anything that you can do to encourage students to participate, it's paid. We'd love it. Come on down. We've got plenty of time. Let's see. Okay, next, registration. Oh, excuse me, information systems. I'm sorry, my page covered.
Good morning, board members. For Information System Division, for the month of July, we worked on application solutions. We met with managers and vendors to discuss issues reported during the May and the June elections. We met with Easy Vote. We had a meeting with the vendor on the application printing issue. And we have a follow-up meeting scheduled for next week with the vendor. That outcome of that meeting will be published in the August report. For Outlook, we met with the Microsoft 365 and the Active Directory team from the IT department to draw up an action plan to effectively manage accounts and licenses for temporary workers working during the polls for advanced voting. On Project Manager, we're scheduling meetings with division managers to assist them in updating their task for the November election project. And WebEOC, we're trying to improve our response time and to effectively collect data and ideas. We're discussing that with the WebEOC team. For voting equipment, right now, system specialists are working on the post-election procedures on our voting equipment. This includes testing equipment that was reported to have issues in the field during the June runoff election and preparing those equipment to be shipped out to the vendor for repairs. We're removing whole election files from the ImageCat X, BMDs, and we're conducting asset checks on those voting equipment, cabinets, and all BMDs, scanners, and printers to make sure we had our proper inventory back after an election. We're also removing the hold seals from the ballot marking device, the ImageCast precinct scanner, and voting cabinets. This concludes our report for the month of July.
Thank you. Questions? No? Comments? Okay, thank you very much. Now registration.
Good morning, board members. How you all doing? As of July 31st, we had a total of 849,191 total voters residing in Fulton County. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. All right, and 750,362 were active, 98,829 were inactive. And as of July, we had voter registration applications come in at 16,752. For our workload statistics, we completed voter registration applications processed, and we had a total of 296 new. And we had a total number of changes in Fulton County with addresses, which was a total of 9,981. And our total number of removals in Fulton County was 7,116. As far as any other training meetings that we held, we did our street maintenance training. Then we also are doing our Blue Raster team meetings, which we have our Blue Raster under 1,000 at this time. And we have been working on our challenge discussions also, and our cybersecurity training also.
Okay, great, Thank you. Questions?
No.
Dr. Ruth? Want me to come back?
Well, so thank you for the report. So the total applications for 2022 are 91,000?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Other questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you.
Okay, to give you those totals, back to Election Day, it's approximately 2,858 workers. Those are all positions combined to include security officers, line monitors, system managers, all positions.
Okay, and what about advanced voting, especially since I was just wanted to know a little bit more about the allocation there, given that they have to commit to the entire time. What's the number?
It's over 480.
Okay, 480 people. Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions? All right. Voter education and outreach.
Good morning, board members and citizens. For the month of July, we trained 20 deputy registrars, giving us a total of 334 for the year. We submitted 75 voter registration applications, giving us 1,914 for the year. We recruited 121 poll workers, giving us 497 on the year. We created 4 voter identification cards, held 51 events. And because we were event heavy, we didn't do as many email outreaches as usual, so we had about 100 connections and 2,000 event interactions. In July, I really wanted to focus on with my team, making sure we updated all of our materials in preparation for the November election, so making sure everything was updated with dates and locations. And I also began doing the outreach to all of the mayors for all of the municipalities to ensure that we can conduct poll recruitment fairs again in every city in Fulton County. We're also planning for some of the national holidays, planning for all of the national voting holidays that take place, including next Tuesday, which is the first one for National Poll Worker Recruitment Day, where we will be hosting 2 events, one here and one at North Point Mall. We also began doing outreach to our senior centers. As we had begun getting requests, we had to make sure they were aware, because they oftentimes reach out to us to help them with processing the absentee applications. So we had to make them aware that they cannot start submitting applications until August 22nd. So you will see in August, we'll be really heavy with visiting senior centers to help them with voter registration, absentee applications, as well as processing any free voter identification cards that are needed. I also worked with the Atlanta Public Schools in July to train all of the social studies teachers. They wanted to be deputy registrars, and so that they can start hosting some drives within the schools. And so I trained, that was the 20 for the month, so it was the 20 social education teachers. And we'll be doing another training with Atlanta Public Schools as well as Fulton County Schools, as they are all interested in making sure they are deputy registrars, so we can be hosting events as well. Lastly, as I stated, we're planning for the national election holidays. So we have National Disability Voter Registration Week in September that's coming up. There's a National Black Voter Registration Day. There's a National Voter Registration Day, and then National Voter Education Week and National Vote Early Day, as well as Chairman Woolard has tasked us with planning an event to encourage early voting on the weekend. So our team is busy planning those events, and you can see the list of all of the events where we were across the county, as my focus has really been to make sure that we're doing as many events in North and South to make sure it's equitable across the county. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. I believe Mr. Johnson had a question or a comment.
When are all these dates? Did I
Okay.
miss it? I'm looking for them.
So which dates are you, all the national
You just the
holidays?
national this and.
I did not drop them in there, but I can, you want me to go give it to you now or send it to you?
No, you can send it to us.
So I'll make sure I send it to all the board members, all of
Thank
the
you.
national election holidays.
Or we got a party plan for either one?
Yes.
No? Okay.
All right, other questions?
Yeah, are we working with all of the commissioners? I see Commissioner Arrington and Commissioner Hall. Are we reaching out to Commissioner Houseman and Ellis to see if they are wanting to host any
Yes, I
events in
reach
their
out to,
areas?
yes, ma'am. I reach out to all the commissioners. And then Commissioner Hausman has asked me to make sure she's abreast of everything that's happening in North Fulton, so I send that to her. And so I'll be getting ready to do a new round of emails to all the commissioners probably this week as we're getting ready to plan for November. The two commissioners that you mentioned, they reached out to me directly for those events, as I hadn't done outreach yet. I wanted to make sure all of our materials were updated before I did outreach to them again.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Very busy schedule, for sure.
How are
Madam
your
Chair.
deputy registrar trainers coming, volunteer-wise, coming to show up at your trainings?
They actually have been very helpful. And so we, with our events, so what I typically have been doing every Friday, I send out the events for the upcoming week and ask for them to volunteer. So we typically are getting 1 to 2 deputy registrars to come out for every event to assist.
Oh, that's good. Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Wingate?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. If I reviewed the VOE event information correctly, 51 events, and as I looked at this, I see that there were only 2 in what we consider to be North Fulton. Is there a reason behind that?
I'm not sure
I
that
think
that
I
is
looked at that correctly.
accurate.
Correct me if I am wrong.
No, we were spread out pretty much all over the county. I would have to point out the ones that were in North Fulton, but I also can send you the actual list that we also have planned out through November. But we had events in Alpharetta and Roswell. We had a couple of events in Alpharetta,
Yeah.
as I'm looking, as well as
Johns Creek?
in Johns Creek. So we were spread out. And then also, some of these events also include voter registration drives hosted by our deputy registrars as well.
And also the voter registrar, several voter registrars in the North Fulton area will be reaching out to the high schools to do voter registration. So I know that's in the works.
Okay. Other questions, comments?
Just a comment, it also might be helpful to plot these on the map so that we can just kind of see how they're spread out throughout the county.
Okay, I will work on that, maybe with Dominic to help me put these on the map. So we will have that, we will update it for the upcoming month in August. And then if you want to see it for the full year, we've been tracking. And when they're submitting now, we actually ask them to put what district, the commissioner's district, so we can also track how many events have been in particular districts. Because early on, we were very much heavy North Fulton, and so I wanted to make sure we started doing some events down south, because we had been in North Fulton for the first 5 months of the year, heavy. So we were trying to spread it out as well in South Fulton.
So actually, that's what I wanted to bring up. I think that if you look at it by the month, it may be unbalanced, but that's based on events that these organizations, when they have them. But when you look at them over a longer period of time, you may see that I can attest they are everywhere. And it may not be a situation where, yeah, in July, it may be Atlanta down, but in March, it was all North Fulton and nothing in the South. So I think our greater focus should be on making sure that they are everywhere. And, you know, looking at a longer period as opposed to 1 month.
Most definitely, yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments to that? Thank you very much. All right, where are we? Does that conclude the report?
Yes, that concludes our operations report.
Okay, any comments to the operations report?
Oh, I just want to make a comment of how well organized the information was, and thank you so much for adding the section on election, I think it was systems, information systems, which was very helpful. So thank you for a very well-organized report.
And I'd like to thank you for the roundtables. I think they were very effective, and that we all learned a lot from the roundtables with all the poll workers, early vote and election day.
All right, ready to move on? All right, we are going to talk about polling place changes, everybody's favorite topic, because nobody likes to do it.
Okay, today we're requesting a move of one polling place change to be presented today. The new location has been surveyed for handicap accessibility. The proposed change was advertised in a legal organ with the reason for the change noted. And all affected voters will be notified via postal mail upon approval. We are requesting the precinct change for South County 04, that's SC 04, from Fire Station number 17 to Cedar Grove Church of Christ. It's approximately half a mile from the fire station. We are asking this request to have better accommodations for HVAC and heat in the new facility that we're relocating to. And that's the only proposal we have today.
It's a sad statement that our fire department doesn't have adequate heating and air conditioning, but we will let the Board of Commissioners address that. Are there any comments or questions relative to that? Okay, can I have a motion that we adopt the changes, the change as recommended?
Motion to accept the precinct change of SC 04.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. It's accepted. We'll move now to the topic of the day, advanced voting and absentee drop box locations. Let me just say one thing, because I heard a few things. I try not to speak directly to public comment, but I just want to correct some things. We didn't change the agenda to add voting locations today. We have anticipated for months now that this August 11th meeting would be the meeting where normally we would approve advanced voting locations, and as such, our staff has been working to prepare those, and as the director mentioned, we have a lot of things we have to go through with advanced voting locations, including making sure that they are ADA accessible, that they are accessible to the general public, and with our new voting equipment, which again, to somebody's comment, we don't determine, the Secretary of State and the General Assembly determine, have created really a lot of power constraints because they use a lot of power, so we can't just go in anywhere lest we blow all their circuits and then never get to go back. So I just wanted to mention that, and also relative to early voting, because somebody said something that I can't remember what it was. During advanced voting in Fulton County, you can vote at any precinct. You can't do that on election day. But so for folks who might be constrained about, where they are and not wanting to go back to North Fulton from the city of Atlanta, for example, there are locations that are closer, and you are welcome to use those during the period of advanced voting. So just to make sure that that is clear, and I will let you take us through it.
Okay, we are proposing 36 advanced voting locations to be open from October 17th through the November 4th. To include Saturday and Sunday voting. Monday through Friday voting will be from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Saturday voting will be from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Sunday voting will be from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. We are also proposing 5 outreach locations, and I can read all the sites to you if you'd like. I will start quickly with the 36. At Adams Park Library, Alpharetta Library, Buckhead Library, Burdett Park Gym, C.T. Martin Recreation Center, Cedar Grove Church of Christ, Chastain Park Recreation Center, College Park Library, Dogwood Library, Dorothy Benson Senior Center, East Point Library, East Roswell Library, Etris Darnell Community Recreation Center, the Fulton County Government Center, Gladys Denard Library, High Museum of Arts, Johns Creek Environmental Campus, Metropolitan Library, Milton Community Center, Milton Library, New Beginning Senior Center, North Fulton Annex, Northeast Brule Oaks Library, Northside Library, Northwest Library at Scotts Crossing, Palmetto Library, Park Place at Newtown, Ponce de Leon Library, OC Library, Roswell Library, Selena Butler Park, South Fulton Annex, Southwest Art Center, Welcome All Recreation Center, and Wolf Creek Library. For the outreach locations, it will be Atlanta, those will be for 2 days each. They'll be in October, I'll tell the dates as I read them. Atlanta Metropolitan College on October 18th and 19th. Georgia State University, the downtown campus off of Cortland Avenue, so for the Veterans Memorial Hall, October 18th and 19th. Georgia Tech, October 17th and 18th. Morehouse College, October 17th and 18th. And we have one pending site, which is Georgia State Alpharetta Center. We are asking for October 17th and 18th, but the facility is attempting to confirm they have a room for us to use. So we'd like that to be approved in case they do, or if they're able to accommodate. So it'd be a total of 36 and a total of 5 outreaches.
Just for a point of clarification, I think you didn't say the Evelyn Lowry Library at Cascade, so I'm just going to say it. I think you
Did I skip that one? I'm sorry.
Or I just blacked out. I don't know.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, Evelyn Library Cascade. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Any questions? Comments?
Couple things. We've heard a lot today about early voting, but I want to make a couple of points. And it's 36 locations, and I really appreciate the staff for making Atlanta and Fulton County the most expansive early voting operation, I think, in the entire Southeast. We absolutely have more early voting locations on day one than the entire metro area combined. And I think that's a testament to how hard the staff is working to make sure that in this environment of highly politicized everything, that we're doing all we can for all of our voters in Fulton County. We want everyone to know that we try to look out, or that staff tries to look out, not just for one part of the county or another part of the county, but everyone in Fulton County, whether it's seniors, whether it's working mothers, working fathers, all voting students, everyone. Fulton County works extremely hard to make voting accessible and easy for everyone. With absentee challenges, there's a shorter time period to get your absentee ballot in. It's a little more challenging for some people now to get their absentee ballot in. So being able to go vote in person early gives them an opportunity to make sure that their voice is heard, and it gives them an opportunity during this time period from 7A to 7P, or the times that we have available. It gives them an opportunity just in case something happens when they get there, they don't have their license. Instead of doing provisional, they can go get their license and come back. They might be able to go before work or after work. There's so many, it gives them greater opportunity to go and vote. And there was a comment made about not a lot of lines and not a lot of people. That's because we put it out there so that people, the goal is not to have long lines. The goal is for people to get in and out. If we have long lines, we get in trouble for long lines. If it takes more than 10 minutes, we get in trouble for more than 10 minutes. We break it down to where they don't have to take more than 10, 15 minutes to vote, and then we're told it didn't take them long to vote. So that's the ultimate goal, at least in my view. And 50%, we're still over 50% of Fulton County residents that vote early, correct? Isn't that our number, right about our number? We're pushing, we got some numbers from 2010 to 2022. I wish mortgage rates and rent was the same as it was in 2010 as it is in 2022. So a lot of things have changed since then. But one thing has changed is that people are utilizing early voting more than they ever have before, because they know that that's a great way to go. And that's about it. I just wanted to make those couple of points, that why we are doing all we can as a board and as a staff. And again, thank you for all that you all are doing to make sure that the citizens of Fulton County are able to vote early as often as they are.
Thank you for your support.
I second what Aaron says.
Okay. Dr. Ruth, any comments? Mr. Wingate, comments?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, I've had a variety of input from Milton citizens that have stated that they do not believe that an early voting location for the Milton Community Center is needed. And I just wanted to, because I'm under obligation to pass along that message, to the board and to the staff, that they believe that the Milton Library is more than sufficient to cover early voting for their citizens.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
Mr. Johnson.
since then, if we decide not to use it and it's determined that Milton Community Center is not, one of the things I know that we've been talking about is trying to relieve pressure off Wolf Creek Library. I thought about Sandtown Recreation Center. I don't know if the city of South Fulton is amenable to Sandtown Rec. The Cliftondale Arts Center, I'm sorry, Cliftondale United Methodist Church and the South Fulton Arts Center are a couple of places that may be able to relieve it. So if we don't use it and we want to keep the same number, let's consider putting it to help relieve Wolf Creek Library.
Well, the reason why we considered Milton Community Center, when we looked at the map geographically, the top portion of Milton needed more coverage. Actually, our largest precinct in Milton is all the way north on the top of the county, so we wanted to take some of the driving and the pressure off of Milton Library. But if we want to relocate those funds to another side of the county, we'll be more than happy to do that.
Well, the other option for consideration is that would, at least give some alleviation of expense.
We would prefer to actually have 36. Our goal is to ensure, we want to encourage people to advance vote, to take the pressure off election day. Our goal is to have short lines, so instead of, I would not want to eliminate the 36th site, I would rather transfer it to another location, if the board approves.
I think transferring it would be beneficial to other voters in the county if we're thinking about moving it out of the Milton Community Center.
And like I said, we were trying to evenly distribute, but if we want to remove that one, we can remove it.
Was there, let me ask, during the primary, was there any problem in terms of volume of voters reported at the Milton Library?
No, there was no problems reported, but it's been reported that there's going to be a larger amount of people voting in the November election. So we just want to be proactive and not have any problems. We reached out to the city of Milton to ask them what would be a good site north, and they recommended this location to us.
For those who don't see the map, it is quite a long distance from the Milton Library to the top of the county. I think the staff has made a recommendation. This would be a new early voting site, is that right?
Yes, it'll be our first time use of that location.
So I'm just going to state my opinion, which is that we move forward with the list as recommended by the staff and then evaluate for future elections whether that is actually useful. I don't live up there, but if I had to drive from the top end down to the Milton Library, I would guess that I wouldn't enjoy that drive very much.
25 minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
I make a motion to accept the early advance locations as presented by the department.
Okay.
Can I make one adjustment?
Whoop.
Sorry.
Yeah.
We are, since we're pending facility approval from JSU Alpharetta, the dates, if approved, will be October 18th and 19th. I just want you to notate that.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
So this would be if Georgia State University Alpharetta Center approves our usage there for those students, it would be October 18th and 19th.
Yes.
As opposed to October 17th and 18th. Thank
Correct.
you for the correction. Okay, it has been moved, and I can't remember if there was a second to accept the list as presented, properly moved. Is there a second?
A second.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? There are none. You okay with that, Mr. Wingate?
Yeah,
Okay, there are no.
That's what you
none-
want.
None opposed. It passes. Thank you. All right, next up, Poll worker pay increase.
Yes, we're asking for approval to increase poll worker pay rates. Due to SB 202, poll workers now permitted to work in adjacent counties. Fulton County is surrounded by 13 adjacent counties. We did a study to see what the rates were in the other counties, and we were less than of many of them. Therefore, we're asking for a pay increase in appreciation for the poll workers that we have and all the hard work and hours that they work. The proposed rates would increase poll manager pay from $275 to $400, assistant poll manager pay from $200 to $300, and clerk pay from $175 to $275. And there will also be some stipend increases as well.
Questions? Ms. Crawford?
Is this only election day? How is this going to affect early vote?
This is election day. We have not, and at this rate, we're comparable with advanced voting. Our election day pay was low, so we wanted to match up with the other counties surrounding us.
Well, I know this will be much welcomed.
Other comments? Okay, I think I have mentioned this issue before, not that we should necessarily base how we decide to go on something other than a comparable rate, but Senate Bill 202 did open up the boundaries for where people can go, and so it has become a price market as opposed to necessarily a proximity market, and I appreciate the staff's diligence in making the decision based on how we compare. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to accept the new pay rates for the poll workers.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. The motion carries. All right. What else? Voter residency challenge, sorry. Who's taking us through that?
I will, thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Speak right into that microphone and loudly and take us through. Oh, let's see. Do we want to go ahead and swear folks in? So we have challenges from Mr. Hubert and Mr. Henson. Do you want to swear them both in at the same time?
Yes, and any witnesses or voters who are here to also give testimony during the hearing.
So if you are here because you were notified that your registration has been challenged, would you just raise your hand so I can see who's out there? Okay, thank you, sir. You got challenged? All right, excellent. All right, so we got 4 people. Let's see, Mr. Hubert is, raise your hand, and Mr. Henson, raise your hand. Okay.
Would you all just stand?
Okay.
All right, thank you. Would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the information that you will give before the board during this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
All righty. All right, now take us through.
All right, thank you all. On July 27th, David Hill Hubert had submitted 260 names for a residency challenge. 61 of those voters have a status of active. 126 of those voters have a status of inactive. And 29 voters are in canceled, moved out of state status due to the NCOA response by the voters' request.
Okay, Mr. Hubert, you want to come down? Good morning. Okay. Is the microphone on? Press that little button on the platform. It's on the right. It has a little person on it.
Okay, good. I see it now.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so we've got a total of 216 names submitted.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
29 are in canceled, moved out of state because they were already removed as a result of the national change of address action from the Secretary of State. Is that
Yes,
correct?
and by their request, they wouldn't want it to be removed.
Okay, so they're, we don't need to do anything with them. 126 have a status of inactive already?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And what would cause that?
They was already in why was they already in active status?
Yeah. Just a variety of reasons?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then
The 61?
61 have a status of active because they just do. Okay. All right. So the motion would be that we, Mr. You're going to have to help a little bit. The recommendation is we put them in pending and then hearing status.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. That's for the 61 active voters. The board can approve placing these voters in pending hearing status. And for those 126, the board can also approve by placing these voters in pending hearing status. With those 126 and that 61, these are the 187 voters that are being challenged today.
Okay, is everybody clear here? No?
Excuse me, Mr. Johnson, I'm not clear. It's Patrice Perkins Hooker.
Yes, Ms.
I'm
Patrice.
just trying to find out if they're already in inactive status, do we have to do anything at all to them?
Yes, ma'am. We'll still have to place them in pending status. Well, pending hearing status, I do apologize.
Okay. I don't understand why.
Yeah, I don't
I'm just
understand
confused. I thought that if we had moved them to inactive status, that was a different recommendation, but if they are already in inactive status, and there is a validity to the hearing, which is why we were changing people to pending, I don't know why we would move them. That's all I meant looking for.
Because they still show up to vote?
Yeah, if they were to come to the poll to vote, we just want to make sure if something has to be reviewed, that it's called in to make sure it's reviewed.
Okay, thank you, because they're looking for information.
Exactly.
Thanks.
Okay. Other questions? Is that clear to everybody? So they'll still be listed as inactive, but it'll be pending, because if they're inactive, they can still come and vote, but we want to make sure that whatever the issue is relative to the challenge gets identified so that they can correct that if they were to show up.
So this is really just like a notation for notation purposes in the system.
Yeah, there's actually a pull-down box, and one of the things would be pending, and if they come up to vote and it says pending, then there's another pull-down box that says the reason for the pending, so it's the name's not correct, the address is not correct, something needs to be clarified. They would have the option at that point to make that correction.
And so there's not been a notification already sent to them?
Yes, ma'am, they has.
Okay, and then they have how many days to respond?
Well, if they're on inactive, they're already inactive for another reason relative to the Secretary of State, right?
That's what my understanding would have been. They probably have not voted within a certain period of time and been moved to inactive. Is that correct?
Yes. It's, like I said, persons are allowed to do these challenges, even though it might not affect anything, the person might not ever come, but it's permitted.
There are people on this list that are inactive that voted in May 2021.
It's a combination.
All of these are fairly recent.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir. Mr. Wingate?
the management of these particular voters and being flagged pending, if in fact they come in to vote and the notice is that they are a flagged voter account, if you will they be able to vote regularly if they provide photo ID? Or some of the discussion we've had is that they would be required to vote provisionally.
It depends on the voter. Some of them will, it'll either be provisional or they'll be able to vote on the BMD. The staff is being instructed to ensure they call center to look up those voters' information and to find out what the situation is with the person, if the person were to arrive.
And so what would be the distinction between voting provisionally and then having us determine the correction and having them be able to correct on the spot?
So once we mark them as pending hearing, they will be allowed to vote provisionally. And so at that point, they will be able to provide their information, clear up. But again, this pending hearing will mark them. So at that point, when they show up to vote, it will be a provisional vote. Does that answer the question, Mr. Wingate?
So even though.
Let me quick follow up to that. And, obviously you all can correct me where I may have the law wrong. But with SB 202, to vote provisionally, is all of that have to be done after 5 p.m.? And how would that work?
After the 5 p.m. is if you're out of precincts. If you have an opportunity to go to your actual precinct, if you're at the wrong location, you need to report to your correct location. But if you vote after 5 o'clock, it's not going to count if you have the opportunity to go to your correct location.
So okay, good. So there is no underlying factor here in terms of timeframes for those purposes.
And that's just for election day, right?
I don't need you.
And that's just for election day, that's correct.
Election day, so if somebody came early voting to do provisional, the 5 o'clock doesn't matter.
So
That was my
I've always thought that, was under the impression that if you're inactive, you can still come in and vote and
With ID.
and fix your problem and vote provisionally. So I don't really understand the pending here, having that really
That's
there.
the
'cause
reason
it's-
why we're changing it to pending hearing. That way we know it's been challenged, and because you could be inactive, show up, vote if everything's okay. But if it says pending hearing, it'll give the person a notation that they need to call to find out why.
Okay, that they
Right.
need to call downtown and verify
Yeah.
this person.
Compared
Okay,
to somebody's just inactive, they'll be fine, but this will flag it that this hearing, that the challenge was made.
okay.
Everybody clear? Good?
Got it.
And then we have 61 that have a status of acting, and you are confirming that we should move them into pending for what reasons?
As far as us putting them in pending hearing status,
Yes. The active voters, what was the basis of the challenge for the active voters? Was it-
because they was moved out of state.
Okay. And you've got confirmation that leads you to believe that they have moved out of state, but we're going to move them into pending so that if they do show up, they can give us.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Hubert had used the Secretary of State's website for Colorado and the website Voter Reef for Florida, Michigan, New Jersey, Texas, Virginia, and North Carolina to verify the information of the voters he's challenging. And we also was able to verify the voters on the list that provided matched the records for the voters in the state of Georgia also.
Okay. Questions, comments? Last time I went to the Vote Ref site, they had removed the state registration files because of some legal challenges that they had, but I will assume that the pending status will allow anybody to correct anything should they show up. Is there a motion? And the motion would be to accept the challenge.
To sustain or oppose the challenge and move the 61 voters to pending status hearing.
Okay. Can I have a motion?
Can we do the 61 and the 126 since they're both being moved to pending status? Okay.
Yes, you can.
I make a motion to move the 187, 61 of those who have active status, 126 that have inactive status, into the pending status to flag them for information.
Okay. Question, is there a second? Sorry, no comments.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. Okay, thank you. Next one.
Could I get, we're still working on mine?
We're finished.
Yeah, okay, could I get a copy so I can tell what happened to each of the voters instead of just a totals number, so I can track of the challenges I made, who got what and who was previously
Yeah, just
canceled?
see me after the meeting. I'll give you my copy.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have a march on here?
All right. Mr. Henson?
Last one.
Hello.
Hi. Hang on one second. I'm going to let Mr. Johnson give us the scenario here.
All right, on July 27th, Mr. John W. Henson submitted one name for a residency challenge. The voter has the status of active, and our recommendations for the board to approve leaving this voter in active status.
Okay. Mr. Henson, do you want to tell us? whatever you
It
wanna
just
tell us?
seemed like this voter had a business address. Had a business address as his voter registration address.
Had a business address at his voter registration address?
Seemed to be, that he's operating a business from there.
Okay. All right, Ms. Frazier, you want to come forward?
What is Frazier's Urban Farm Facebook?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have, I just wanted to give you the opportunity to speak to the challenge.
Well, I live in a house, okay? I can show you my driver's license, which says that I live in a house. I brought a picture of the survey of my house that says my house is a house. And in case the survey is not enough, I have a picture that looks like my house is a house. I have a copy of a subpoena that is addressed to my house with my name on it, saying that I might live at that house. Got a permit from the city of Roswell that I requested that says that my house is registered as RS30, defined as single-family estate at about 2.7 acres, thus is a house. I've got my challenge letter mailed to my house. I got it because I live at my house, okay? Bank statement mailed to my house where I live in that house. Brought my wife as an expert witness because she also lives at my house. I've got my Fulton County GOP poll watcher document, which I had to sign under penalty of perjury, that I live at my house, okay?
And, excuse me, those addresses are all the addresses at which you're registered to vote?
I couldn't understand the
Sorry,
mask.
oh, I'm sorry. Those are all the addresses
Yes.
at which
same-
you're registered to vote?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
At my house.
You can continue if you wish, or we will take your word for it based on the
Well, I just
evidence you presented.
want to make sure that you understand that my house is a house. I've got my passport, got my children's IDs. My children also live at my house. They live in that school district where this house resides. 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath residence. Looks like a house. It doesn't look like a factory where
Mr. Frazier, are
other
you,
folks live.
are you running a business out of
wait,
your house?
Wait. Let's let him finish.
I've got my car registration where my car resides at said house. My title for my car at said house, social security cards, birth certificate, if you want to see any of this. All that says, I am who I am. I live at my house. We have homestead exemption at my house. Here's a gun permit, discharge a weapon in Roswell, signed by myself and the police officer with my address on it at my house. Thus, I can fire an air rifle, which they have a silly permit for, but I signed the document in front of a cop saying, that is my house. Tax records, state of Georgia believes I live at my house. I've got some federal documents. The feds believe I live at my house, okay? More car insurance at my house. I can probably give you my library card where I'm registered at my house. Donation to my church at my house. Clearly, this is a frivolous, retaliatory challenge because another individual in this room, standing adjacent to me, claimed to live in a factory where he has a woodworking business, which is not a house, which is registered as commercial, okay? My house is RS30 residential. This is retaliation. This has nothing to do with anything else. However, I am happy that now challenges are officially bipartisan. So I guess that's one step in the right direction. However, clearly this is retaliation, has nothing to do with facts.
All right, thank you. We don't, unfortunately or fortunately, have the ability to make judgments on our own about these things. Again, I have asked, and I just hope somebody takes me up on it, that somebody goes to the General Assembly and makes some corrections that make these much more efficient for everybody involved. So thank you for coming down.
Well,
That concludes your comments. Thank you. The motion is that we will leave you in active status, and I will take a motion.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I hate taking time, but I just got to ask.
Sure.
So what about this Fraser Urban Farm?
Yeah, I've got the permit if you wanted to see.
No, I'm asking you, what is it?
So we have a large garden in the back, and in the city of Roswell, you need a permit to sell vegetables to your neighbors. So we grow extra vegetables, all organically grown, and we take it up to the stand. It's a little honor system vegetable stand. People drop in $5 and grab a bag of tomatoes or okra, things of that nature, and people come all the time and they grab and go.
So if someone saw this, they could possibly be confused by a commercial property versus a residential property, and then make a challenge to a person's voter registration, even though you have a whole lot of documentation to show that you actually live in your, I think you called it a house?
I believe that is how it's.
That's about right.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, I just want to be clear, so a lot of times these challenges come towards people who are living their lives and doing the right thing. But instead of finding out, is the urban farm actually an urban farm or residential, which will just take a few minutes to do, you do these challenges and then you have moments where you have to prove that you live in your house, right?
We're not going to go back and forth.
Okay.
That's a rhetorical
Well,
question.
I'm done. That was a very rhetorical question.
That's just, no, we're not going back and forth.
Okay,
Thank
you.
We are done with that. Okay.
Say what you want.
Comments, questions? Okay, I need a motion.
Yes, I make a motion that we accept the registrar's recommendation, leaving this person as active, right?
That we reject. We would reject the challenge.
We would reject the challenge.
Yes, and let them just reject the challenge, and it automatically
Okay, we're just
reverts
going to
what it
reject the
is.
challenge. Properly moved, I'm sorry, did I hear a second?
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? There are none. The motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, we've come to the conclusion of our agenda, except for the possibility of executive session. We do have some business to discuss, a personnel matter. Could someone make a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we go into executive session for personnel reasons.
Second.
I'm sorry, And litigation.
And litigation. All right.
Thought I got it right.
Motion to go into executive session for the purposes of discussing a personnel matter and litigation. All those in favor, please, probably moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. That concludes the more interesting part of our meeting. Y'all are welcome to wait around, but I'm not anticipating that we will take action when we return. And we'll be back as soon as we can. Thank you.